First time yes, now we are recording. Cool. So would you like to just say something about your background? Like, who is it that I have a bit in front of me right here? Where do you come from and where are you right now, kind of?
Okay. So I come from initially a very classic type of studies and start of career. I was an engineer initially, specialized in quantum physics applied to making new matter. Like new material that goes to space, stuff like that. And then I did many other things, including being a stage performer, a stage director. What else? A translator, an activist for social rights in flexible capitalism. What else? A teacher. And then the chief operating officer of a startup that was quite successful at the beginning. And I've lived about half of my adult life abroad and half of my adult life also of my kids' life abroad. So as a kid, I was in Île de la Réunion, which is like next to Madagascar, which is mainly where I grew up, tropical island of the Indian Ocean, and always traveled a lot with my parents. And then I lived about 2 years in Brazil and 10 years in Egypt. And I came back to France because I'm French initially. I came back to France January 2021. And it actually coincided with, I was always a very concerned citizen about climate change. And I was always a very informed citizen about climate change. But I think I was always very scared of diving into this. And so for most of my life, except signing, how do you say, petitions, petitioning? Where you put your signature and your name on something saying, I protest this or that, and being well informed. I wasn't doing much regarding this. But my stay in Egypt, I discovered the Siwa Oasis, which is like next to the border with Libya, in 2011, the end of 2011. And was so stunning. I went back in 2012 and in 2013. And starting 2013, I could see the drastic change happening with the destruction of the environment there, because the government, the alleged government, a dictatorship came back in charge, and took over industrial activities in Siwa, taking land over the desert, with pumping underground water for irrigation, and salt extraction, because it's very ancient salt and it's on a salt bed, a very thick one, and destroying the landscape, like basically, and messing all of those drillings and canals and new canals and all of that, and the change in how the evaporation happens actually. All of that made the pockets of fresh water start to be polluted by salt. So there is a net loss of fresh water, and we are right in the middle of the desert. And that oasis had been standing for 10,000 years. And now it's under real threat. So, anyways, this reconnected me with climate change, um, ecosystem collapse also, and species collapse. And so I started to think about like, what can I do? And then it was connected, I don't know why it was connected to agriculture. And agriculture, I don't know, I just came to the idea, agriculture is like, it's the major problem, big polluters, creating all the problems in the world. And carbon emissions is horrendous, especially animals, blah, blah. I could never go with that, narrative. And so I had in my head, I was like, okay, if it's such a big problem, such a cause, it has to be a solution too. Because it's like most of the land on Earth is under agriculture. So it's land, it's life, it's environment, it's ecosystems. So it had to be a solution. So 2020, I quit everything and I started digging in agriculture as a climate solution, and very quickly came across regenerative agriculture through, for example, Soil for Climate and Kiss the Ground organization. And at first I was like, what is this? Like, like it's like miracles all over. What are you talking about? Must be bunk. And then, digging in, I was like, well, okay, that is the solution and it's already there. So it's absolutely amazing. And so I started studying, like with Kiss the Ground, with ecosystem restoration camps, and looking into, I did a permaculture design course also, and what else? And holistic management came about because I was very interested in like, everybody is dealing with like vegetables and fruits and stuff like that, and nobody's doing anything about animals, which are so key to everything. And so I shifted towards holistic management, and then I'm like, through connections, I became the translator of the ebooks of the Savory Institute into French, and started a group. And now I've been like, in 2022, I co-founded the Savory Hub del Norte with Megan Sapp in Spain, in the north of Spain. And also in 2022, co-founded with a group of people in France. We are 2 French and 3 foreigners. A group called Pâturégénéré, which doesn't have a legal form for now. We are a collective of independent consultants, and but we are like entirely dedicated to holistic management, and primarily holistic management for livestock farming.
So if I understand you correct, you are like totally committed and involved in the regeneration aspect as of now. Like, you don't have a job and do that on the side. Like, you're fully immersed in that.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that was a bit long.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I loved listening to it, so it's okay. But and how was it to leave the safety of where you came from and entering this new era, or how to say, like, how did you navigate in that, like, also like surviving financially and being able to find new jobs, or like, how has that process been from one to another?
Well, first of all, I've never been very safe financially in my life.
Yeah.
And you can see by all the changes in my career and ways of lives and places where I lived, that well, I don't care too much for that, and I make do with what is possible. But I have a key advantage since I started working in regen agriculture. Hopefully in 2024, I'm going to make some money with it. But the key advantage that I had is that I had money in the bank. I had savings. So that helped greatly. And then where I live is a family house. So I'm also not paying rent, for example, or mortgage.
Yeah.
So this is why I can give myself a break, and I can lower the level of stress for now by only focusing on regen ag and the possibilities that I can create. But if this wasn't the case, this is one thing that I promised myself, because it took me a very long time to shift towards this. And the reason for that is that I tried to shift with another job. But what it ends up doing is that the other job always takes over. So I promised myself that because the other jobs that I would do would not be dumb jobs, you know, they would require actually like being, being fully involved. And so doing this was just like not doing it. And so the what I promised myself was that if I absolutely need to make money, it has to be something that is connected to Regen Ag. For example, I did some communication work here and there for big universities because I'm so fluent in English, and so I can guide them in their communication in English. But it's still connected. That university is all about agronomy, so it's still connected to agriculture somewhere. And or I promised myself that I would take a very dumb job, something that does not require any effort for me, like I don't know, be sorry for saying dumb for this, but like I would, sell clothes in a store, or whatever, whatever like that, which does not really require that I
put your whole mind and your whole
yes.
being in. Yeah, I understand.
All this, what I mean by that is that all the decisions are taken for me.
Yes.
I just have to execute something, and that's it.
I hear you. And how did you get involved with Durkan, and how did you work with him? Because I don't know that much about it either. So if you could share some on that.
So that's really funny. Because in 2022, because of co-founding the Savory Hub in Spain, Hub del Norte, I got invited as a hub leader or a plus one. I don't remember. Like Megan was invited to the Savory gathering in Portugal last year, in 2023. And I was the plus one for free too, like invited to attend as a co-hub leader, I think. And then when we were there, Durkan was there. And so we met like for those, I can't remember, 3 or 4 days. We met quite often, but we never really had like a long conversation or one-on-one conversation until I think the last evening where I went outside to roll myself a cigarette because I'm a smoker and smoke my cigarette. So, and I see that like 2-3 people are sitting, and but with their back turned to me. And so I sit, like there is a tree, I sit there, I start rolling my cigarette, like, and I overhear the conversation. And at some point I hear Durkan say, and actually Durkan was talking to one of my partners in France, but everybody was in the dark, in the shade. And I hear Durkan explain that there was this project in Egypt that they will have to stop managing because they don't have the time. and they don't have the staff to do that. Because of Regen Hive, because of all the evolution of what Drukan is and all of you guys are doing. And so I'm like, here with my cigarette, I turned to him and I'm like, what about Egypt? Explain it to me. And he looks at me, and you can see my face. I'm obviously not from Egypt. I had said to everybody knew I was from France, So he looks at me and he's like, why'd you ask? And I'm like, oh yeah, because I've lived 10 years in Egypt and I just came back, basically. So he's like, oh, okay. And so he started like giving bits and pieces. And I looked at him and I just said, well, what about me? How about I do this, under your supervision? But, and so he looked at me and he was like, okay, we can talk about it. And so we got in touch a bit after, and we built the relationship. And I know of a young agronomist that is absolutely 100% for regen ag, but he cannot make a living out of it in Egypt. We did our PDC together. And so when Durokan was like, okay, I think I can trust with you with this. Let's go and let's see what happens. And let's build the trust and stuff. And I was like, okay, I want this guy on board. And Durokan was like, sure, but you'll have to share the money. And I'm like, I don't care. I want this guy on board. And that's how we started working together.
Wow. And what was your role? Like, what were you doing in that work?
So this is about a 800 hectare farm owned on an industrial, like former industrial site owned by. So, for example, like people on the farm, they go to work with all the safety gear that the yellow jackets and the helmet. And so, although the factory is like far away, but no, that's the safety drill for everyone because it's a cement company. So yeah, and it's been a farm for a long time, but minimally, and then they scaled up production. They started to have ambitions, maybe about 6 years ago, something, 6-7 years ago. And then a new CEO for in Egypt and the region came in, who is from Mexico, and who is 100% into regenerative agriculture. So he contacted the previous team put together by OTAG. So it was Durukan and Simon Goodall. They went there in 2021. Did amazing work laying out all the foundations, making this be an actual farm, like with some form of management and administration, and onboarded the teams on animal management, and laid out the maps of the transformation of the infrastructure. All of that. They laid all of that in 2021 in the middle of the COVID troubles. And then for 2022, the contract was downsized drastically. And so the following up with people became very far between and very little, and everything started to slowly go sideways. And in 2023, all of a sudden they were like, no, we need again, we need you to come in and to actually put us back on track. That's not how they said it, but that's pretty much what it was. So my role was to manage that and to advise so as to put the whole project back on track, because their ambition is to become like a beacon of profitable regenerative agriculture. in the Middle East. So that's what we did. We put everything back on track. We started very desperate, you know, like the first farm visit, which I did not do. It was my colleague in Egypt that did it. You should have seen his face. And then he was telling me, you know, plot by plot, he was telling me what was there. And I was like, seriously? It looked like it. And it was very, like it was very, very, very less than what was said in words. You know, like the description was not matching reality at all.
Oh.
So at first we were like, how are we gonna do this? It's gonna be like, it's gonna be really, it's gonna be impossible. We're not gonna be able to do anything, especially because Durukan and Simon that started this project, they have like 10 and 20 years of experience with these kind of things. And I'm an accredited professional since 2023, since last year. I really trained in 2022. So, you know, I'm very new at this. I've done like, you know, I've done facilitation, negotiations, advisory, like all of this I've done, but not for agriculture ever, and not for such an incredibly complicated project, you know.
So it was your first management of like a whole complex process on a farm with many different people and players to consider it. That sounds to me like a very brave move of you to just get in there and do it. Like, how was that process for you? Like, how are you happy with what is it?
It was actually, you know, at first it felt like 2 months in, I was like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
Why did I offer myself to do this? It felt like a leap in off the cliff, you know, like it really felt like that. And Durokan was managing us, supervising us, Durokan style, you know, which is, you can do this. Okay, but how? You can do this. I can only, you know, I will only guide you on like, you know, like give you a frame of reference, but you can do this. Trust yourself. And at first it was like, this is going to go really, really bad. But actually, no. Actually, no. It went amazingly well,
Wow.
to be honest. Compared to how, like, the stress at start and the state of things at start, and the complexity of that project, you know, because it's an industrial site. There is, anyways, it's very, very tricky, very, very tricky, but it went really well. Like, I think what started to put things in a better perspective for me was when I first went on site. And I had imagined that it would take me at least 2 days to get my bearings around that farm, and that I would have to go like really plot by plot and investigate a lot of things. But actually, in half a day, I was like, no, okay, now the picture is complete. This is not like this is not the problem, you know. And Durokan was like, what you're only, and this was the best advice ever. You're only advising. You're not commanding anything. So if you tell people to do something, you don't know if they're going to execute it and how they're going to execute it. And this shouldn't stress you out because it is not your responsibility.
Yeah, it's not within your control, right?
Right.
It's not
It's
within your control. Yeah.
it's their responsibility. So that was hard to take in, but once I started like looking at things in this way, things became much more simple. And the other fantastic advice was, you advise and you just guide them. So you tell them about the consequences of this or that, but somehow don't influence. Somehow build the decision together instead of being prescriptive, even if you see what would be the best way, if you give this, it will not work. It has to be built. And then, his advice, those two advices, plus doing the work actually, and which was a lot of simply listening to fears, making people comfortable about things, explaining, teaching the backgrounds, sometimes being like a tough mother, like whatever makes them be able to stay there, look and think differently, whatever works for this moment to happen. And so all in all, like it's the thing, and it's written in the ebooks, and that's something that you hear everywhere. It has to be built, and it's the whole essence of the holistic context. Who are the decision makers? They should be at the table. They're the ones that should take decisions. When you're advising, you're not a decision maker.
Mhm.
They are. And so they should take the decisions and they should build the plan. And if
Yeah.
they don't build the plan with you, even if you hold their hands, that's perfectly okay. But if they are not the ones doing the work, they will never, ever implement it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So it
So
sounds
that's,
like you had quite a steep learning process.
yeah. And in the end, I'm extremely happy.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit what you felt like you gained, or what was your most valuable learnings during this process?
Well, those three things that I just mentioned,
Okay.
like the two advices of Durkheim, and really the taking in this realization that it has to be done, the work has to, you have to, as an advisor, you put people to work. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And you give them what they need to make better decisions, and you guide the process for the better decisions to be the ones that preferably they choose. uh, so this is a huge learning. Like, for example, we have a big advisory project in Spain right now, which is led by Megan, and actually everything that I've learned on that project in Egypt is extremely useful to her
Mhm.
and to us.
Yeah.
So that's yeah, that is it was a steep learning curve, but it was fantastic. Now I feel it gave me so much confidence for the future.
Yeah.
Really, like when I talk to big people now, when I manage to catch their attention, I'm very relaxed. I was not before. I'm extremely relaxed and confident about what I'm saying, and I'm assertive, but without being, without defending. I'm not like an activist defending. I'm
Yeah.
just assertive and giving space. And when people say things that are not accurate, I'm way more relaxed to say, sure, but let's give some context. What you say is true according to this context. But if you expand, then it's not the same. What will happen is not the same. What you should look at is not the same. Stuff like that. And the greatest happiness, I don't know, like, I'm sorry if I talk too much,
No,
but
talking is nice.
one of the greatest things that happen is that so the CEO changed, and the new CEO is like, yeah, whatever, regarding regenerative agriculture. So we were like, okay, most probably the contract will not be renewed, even with everything that we've delivered. And this is what happened. They did not renew the contracts. And about a month and a half after that, I received a WhatsApp message from the farm manager. So the farm manager is actually not working on the farm anymore, but it's not because of this. It's just because he was detached from the university and now he has to go back full time to his research position. Everybody knew that. We knew it. Everybody knew about this. But yeah, he contacted me a month and a half after, and he was like, "Hi, how are you?" I'm like, "Hello." So we started a conversation, and in the conversation, at some point, he said, like, "I just wanted to make sure that we keep in touch, and that whatever you're going to do in Egypt further down the line, you keep me posted."
Wow.
And
One thing leads to another, huh?
yeah, and this is, like you write in the reports, trust was built between farm manager and us and the teams and Region Ag and blah. But, it's a little bit like your word against the others, or people can say, yeah, I trust you, but like this, you know. But the fact that he called, like he messaged and he wants to keep in touch, then I know for sure that we have built value and trust for these people. And I asked him, what about, and he was like, yeah, I also contacted your colleague in Egypt because I want to stay in touch with both of you. So that's great. And then I asked him, what about the livestock manager on the farm? And he replied to me, we're having a tea right now. So he also wants to stay in touch with us, which is fantastic.
That's good.
That's amazing validation.
Yeah, for sure. So to my last question now. I think it's
Mhm.
my last. There may be two, but getting there. So what is now when you will continue working in the regenerative movements, like what are the main areas that you want to work on? What are the main contributors? Like what is what is it that you want to continue to contribute with in this movement?
I am very interested in the scaling part of things. So, for example, I am working with individual farmers now, and I'm working at a very small scale now, but because I'm still building my name. And what I really want, and from the beginning, what I really want is to work with projects that have big impact in terms of number of hectares or in terms of like credibility and reputation. This is really what I'm aiming for. So my work is oriented towards that. Like, for example, in France, my ideal client would be a cooperative because we have huge cooperatives that are moving the products of the farmers. They are the intermediary, and they are looking for solutions, and they know that everything is going to shit, and they're very aware of that, but they're like everybody else, they don't want to move before the neighbor moves.
Yeah.
So, but this is one of my main targets, like managing to get my foot in the door and to be introduced to the right person. And this, unfortunately, either it takes a long time and you build your name on your own bits by bits, or you find the right connection.
Yeah.
So right now we are starting to find in France the right connections, like the connections to the big people. So yeah, and the other line of work that it was not originally my idea. It's the idea of my colleague, one of my colleagues here in France, Louise Ellsworth. We want to work at the watershed level. So there are water agencies in each watershed in France, like the large ones and the smaller ones. And the water agencies are agencies that actually do really good work and get very little support.
Mm.
And then there are numerous stakeholders on a watershed, you know, like towns, municipalities, many levels of administration, and farmers, and the water agencies, and many key players. And what we want is to get invited to the table and participate in the creation of the solution. And we have a specific river that we're targeting right now. And so far, nobody knows that we're doing this. We're knocking on the door.
Where there is a will, there is a way, right?
Yeah, hopefully fast enough, because we need to do this now. Huh?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now to my last question. I got a good one to ending this. So
Uh-huh.
we are running a entrepreneurship, a regenerative entrepreneurship program, where we
Mhm.
have quite many young people who are, you know, in the where they're gonna start their careers. So, like, what would be one advice from you, or one suggestion for these people? Yeah.
I have a very simple suggestion. Don't how do you say that in English? Do not negotiate. You want to achieve something in this world. If you are looking into Regen Hive and regenerative entrepreneurship, is because you know that we need to do something. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't be flexible. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be patient and explain and hold people by the hand. Yes, you should do this, but everything, if you start to deviate, like we tend to think, or at least I tended to think, that if I didn't abide by a certain way and made myself this and that and fit into this and that boxes, then everything would be extremely difficult. It's not true. It's extremely difficult to do something that you disagree with.
I
It
get shiver on my arm. It's so, yeah.
Yes, it eats out. It eats you out. It drains you, and then you wake up when you're like 45 and you're like, shit, I need to do something. What is this? I'm late. That's nonsense. Do it when you are full of energy, and when you can work yourself to death because you don't care, and party at the same time, like, because you're young. And so keep your line. Stay in the line that makes the most sense, that brings the most sense of existence, of when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm happy to see myself, and just carry on in this, because it's not going to be more difficult to do that than to go like sideways for reasons that really, in the end, they are not what matters.
I agree so much with you. Like, I've tried those sideways also, and the pain of doing something that you not really believe in, I think is so much more draining than trying to navigate in this new, which is at least, exciting and exhilarating. It may sometimes also, of course, be like frustrating, and I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't have any money. What am I gonna like? But at least it feels right? Like, at least it's, yeah, it's,
And really believe in yourself. Just
yes.
believe in yourself, yeah. believe in yourself. It's okay. It will happen.
Yes, I love it. I love this ending. I think this is a perfect. Thank you so much, Caroline, for this. It was really nice to get to know you a little bit as well. Like I have heard about you in the background, but I did not know so much. So it was really nice to
Yeah, it was nice to meet you too, although we didn't speak much about you.
Nay,
And thank you so much. I'm really happy to share.
Yes, cool. I will share with you when I put it out, where I put it out, and yeah.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks for now.
Enjoy the evening.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.